that y'all can come to the museum after you visit the Liberty Tree, between when our gentlemen are done speaking and dinner. Right, James? And we are at 102 South. Okay, I did. I wrote it on my hand, and I was talking with my hand that came off. South Brooks. So if you have any trouble, just plug it into your GPS, and the nice little lady on the other end will help you get there. Or we will. We're also very nice. Yeah, and it's a great museum, by the way. If you have not had a chance to go over and see Jean Clark, please do that. I'm also going to make one little altercation to the schedule here. And this poor gentleman has no idea I'm going to put him on the spot. Bill Seegers, I'm going to move you up a little bit from tomorrow to today, after Rick gives us a short conversation on the Francis Marion paper project, which is very fun and very close to being finished. If you wouldn't mind talking about the road markers after he's done, that's a great project as well. And for those of you that work with me in publications, I do want Valley Sharp to raise her hand. I'm putting her on the spot right over there. She's a little jet lagged, but she is working with us on publications. So if you have something in the works with us, I definitely want you to meet with her. But without further ado, Rick, you ready to talk about a fun project we're working on? No?
Yeah.
This is going to be fun. All you.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. You know, it is such a pleasure to see a bunch of familiar faces that have been here often. And it's even better to see some of the folks that are here as first timers. Come back again, because I'm here to tell you, this is a family. And it is always a pleasure to come here and see you all. Last night about 10 o'clock, now I'm supposed to talk tomorrow morning about the influences on Marion's transition to part of the command. But about 10 o'clock last night, I checked my email, and Dave Nealon says that he has some car trouble on his way down from Pennsylvania, and that wanted to know if I would take over and talk about his portion he wanted to talk about, which was conflicts in command. And today's topic was going to be the conflict between Sumter and Marion. And I'm a little bit well-versed in Marion and stuff, so I thought, okay, I'll do it. So I stayed up till 2 o'clock making sure that I had all his slides and everything was good, and what his notes were and that sort of thing, to try to do my Dave Nealon impression. And got here today, and Carol said, hey, fantastic, you don't have to do it. But what I'm going to do anyway is I'm going to talk to you about the Francis Marion paper, because I'm here to tell you Dave Nealon is the guy who did the manuscript on the Marion paper. I beg your pardon? Oh, I'm sorry. Somebody made a comment. But anyways, Dave did a fantastic job. So if we go back a couple of years to in 2022, Charles Baxley is having a conversation with me. And he is talking about the fact that we're going to take Dave Nealon's manuscript, which he has been able to get the rights to, and be able to edit it for publication. And it's going to be a part of what the 250th Commission is doing. So in the process of doing that, he says, you know, would you like to be one of the editors? I'm like, well, I don't know about that. Well, folks, I was one of the editors along with Ben Rubin. So we got in and we're working this thing. Now the manuscript of the Marion papers covers from 1759 to 1795. And we looked at that and we went in and we took Dave's manuscript, and the thing that myself as a military historian now that we were going to do was give context to the letters, to be able to tell folks what was going on. And Charles's guidance to us was to be able to take those letters and to be able to let people see what they say, to be able to illuminate folks' knowledge about the people they were written to be able to take those letters, as I said, and put in the context of what was taking place. And he wants it to be an immersive experience so that scholars or people who just have a general interest would be able to glean from them what was taking place with Francis Marion. In the course of our producing this thing, and it went from August 2022 to August 2023, we completed the editing, turned it over to Charles, they were not as detailed as Charles wanted them to be. So we regrouped, and then we jumped back into fire. Unfortunately, with Doug passing away last October, I was asked to be the interim director of the Battleground Trust, so I had to back out of being an active editor at that point. And Dave Rubin, Ben Rubin kind of took it on himself to be able to complete some of the final things that Charles had directed for us to do. So right around June of this year, it was complete. And now it is over, and Valley Sharp has taken on the role of being able to get this thing published for us. Over 900 pages. The plan is 3 volumes. And I know you all are anxious to buy these things, right?
No, we want them free.
Except JD.
You know what? JD, you get your wish.
Why is it?
Because Charles is under the auspices of the 250th, and also with Doug Bostic with the Battleground Trust working in conjunction with Charles. It was a team effort in that regard. The intent was for the Marion papers to be offered and be born online, so that everyone in this room and anyone who wants access to the Marion papers will be able to read them. Okay? The second piece of that is we know that there are scholars out there that want to have their hands on a hard-bound copy. And we're going to do that too. So we're looking at illustrations, we're looking at maps, and I will tell you, from what Dave Nealon did, and of course we had the, at least copies of original letters. And you know how, folks like Leon here, you know what that the end scratching looks like on some of these things, and being able to transcribe them and keep the format as much as possible that these things have. And you will not believe the number of hours we spent making sure that the misspellings were misspelled correctly when we got there. And to try to get it in the format so that you're seeing as closely as possible with what we're putting out here will resemble the letter that was original. Now, in the process of doing this, what it has also done for myself as a military historian and other people, I've gotten to know Francis Marion a lot better. In the process of doing this, and we've talked about it before, for instance, with the Rounds campaign, we have found that sometimes historians and biographers did not get it right when they were interpreting Francis Marion, and things like the fact that he, quote unquote, did not want to serve under Sumter and drug his feet during the Marion campaign, or the Rounds campaign. Marion was the ultimate duty-first guy. Now, thanks Tom for all the stuff he told us about the various resources here. One thing I will tell you that if you describe Marion, I think it's in Rankin's book, maybe in the introduction, one of Marion's men allegedly described Marion as a short, ugly, cross, hook-nosed, knock-kneed SOB. I saw a little bit of everything in that in the Marion papers. He was a disciplinarian. He was a guy who did not lead by coddling anybody, but by training them and taking them into combat. He put his soldiers first in everything he did. And I think that you will appreciate that when you get to the Marion papers. So what Valley did is, or what we did after we got the initial transcript back, and that's what Dave had for us, and Dave had some context, and what we did is we added to it. And when we got through with that, we were feeling pretty good about things. So we went out and we had a couple of guys go over it for us. One of them was Jim Pykuch over in Camden. He was one of the readers, as well as Steve Smith, archaeologist. He was one of the readers. You know, and they looked at it, and a couple of things they said was, why is it that you have in here that if you mention a guy's name, then you have his biography underneath it. Why are you doing that? Is it because that's what Charles wanted to do? We have made, you know, Charles, forgive us. We're having it now, so we just reference that you can go to the back, to the appendix with the biographies and be able to get that rather than reading it immediately. Okay, some things like that does make it a little bit easier. Also, we had footnoted each one of the different pages, and what we then did is we have now footnoted it so that they're going to be sequential. So if you got volume 1 footnote 93, you know, this has only 1 footnote 93 or whatever. Okay, so as we're looking here, this is sort of the format that we're looking at.
And Rick, when it's born digitally, which is something that we've been talking about during our meetings, that biography piece, if you're reading it on your Kindle or you downloaded it, it's hyperlinked. So you can click on it right then and there and learn about Rutledge or learn about Thomas Sumter and never really lose your place, which is a very interesting thing. We're all used to the books where you have to flip back and forth. But since it's born digitally, that is one thing that's going to be very interesting too. Sorry if I jumped ahead for you.
Hey, Heather, let's go back up just a little bit. There you go. Right there is good. Okay? As you see here, the first mention of Marion. You go down and he is mentioned right here in this letter. That is as close as we can get to exactly how that letter looked. October. OCTOR period. Hey, that's what it looked like. Trust me, the hours spent making sure the thing that doesn't look right looks the same way. Keep going. We put Marion's early will in there. We don't cover his entire childhood, kind of give an overview of things, but really what we try to do is we pick up primarily in his adult life. Okay, stop right there. Okay, the letter that talked about the shot heard around the world actually came in up around Little River.
Right next to my house.
Yep, JD was there. And that letter got sent from Marion's brother Isaac to the Committee of Safety that forwarded it on to Georgetown, that sent it on to Charleston, and that is when the meetings were held and the provincial Congress decided that they were going to have, they had formed their regiments, and Marion was one of the guys that was elected in that process. Okay, and then you get into the orders of General Moultrie. And you go into things like, you know, we're going through the whole process of Marion in the 2nd South Carolina when he was a major at Fort Sullivan, commanding the left wing of the fort, when he became Lieutenant Colonel Commandant in November 1776. The kind of the period between 1776 and about 1779 where a lot of things are pretty well tedious. Hey, you can read some of these things, folks, about court martials and the number of lashes given and that sort of thing. Hey, that are fantastic. One of the things we're working on, Eric Nason has a history of the 2nd South Carolina that we're working, that he has provided the manuscript for. And when you read through that, it's absolutely fantastic when it talks about some of these folks and it talks about them, the individuals. There's one of these guys, and if you add up the number of lashes he got, it was like over 900 lashes. But the thing is, it's over time. He gets 300 here, 200 there. And I'm thinking, and I'll have to talk to Eric after this, it sounds like it was with like a cane or switches or something like that, and not a cat o' nine tails every time. Hey, was it cat o' nine tails every time? Hey, guess what? Hey. Probably should have changed his habits. This guy liked to drink this a little. Okay, keep going. Okay, good right there. Okay, anyway, you kind of get the gist of it. This thing, we are really impressed by the formatting of it so that people can find it concise. It's compartmentalized in a way that, you know, things are not running together. And what our hope is that when this comes out, that it is going to give a great increase in the scholarly effort, particularly on Francis Marion and the Southern campaigns of the American Revolution. And we can thank Charles Baxley and Doug Fossey as folks that are really have made this happen. And I sat at that table there with both of them last year at the symposium, and trust me, you can feel the void without a doubt. Do you have any questions? Yes, ma'am.
Just a comment. The fellow with the 900 lashes, who was always getting in trouble, he kept re-upping. And when the city surrendered, apparently he wasn't there because he shows up. The fellow with the 900 lashes, he kept re-upping in the second cell. And when the city surrendered, apparently he wasn't there, but he got out somehow, and he turns up in Marion's brigade. And one must, you can have this like vision of history and time when Marion is reviewing his group that he's going to take over, and there's the troublemaker in the middle, and he's come to fight. So hopefully that worked out in the long run. But the guy must have had a lot of confidence in Marion as a commander to do that.
Yeah, you know, exactly. Can you imagine that every time you turn around and get in trouble and you're getting, you know, getting punished for it, but you keep signing up again? At least my time in the Army, hey, you had about, you know, 2 strikes and you were out. You know, but this guy, particularly when he didn't have to, but he went back and fought under Marion again. I think it says great things about Marion.
Thank you. This is very impressive. Will the collection spread out or on a general collection? And will this be in PDF file?
Okay, as far as it was spread out, the way Dave went about this thing, there were some letters that you could find, like for instance in the papers of Nathaniel Green. He went to auction houses, he went through, you know, other sources where these letters could be found, archives, Michigan, New York, other places. I think that, I want to say he found 2, maybe overseas. I may be misremembering that. But anyway, so he collected these from all different places. And one of the things is, we know there is one more out there. A dentist in California has it, or had it, put it in a box somewhere and can't find, he couldn't find the box, and now Dave says that, you know, he can't locate the guy. Okay, but as many as we have. Also, the Thomas Sumter papers are being worked on, and we have cross-leveled to try to make sure that all the Sumter and Marion letters that we have are accounted for, and some of them just aren't. As a matter of fact, I was emailing them last night about one letter that Sumter wrote about Marion, talking about wanting to go and take Georgetown, and the letter that Marion wrote to Sumter, we can't find it. But letters from Green acknowledged the fact that the letter was out there. So we pretty well think it was about the same time with the letter that Marion sent to Green. So, you know, and Dave Nealon did an outstanding job of playing Columbo and tracking this stuff down. And so it's just like the story I was just telling you here. You can take these little threads of information and be able to determine this letter is missing, but it should have been written about the same time as Marion's letter to Green. So you can kind of at least put it in proximity to each other.
Well, is that a PDF file?
Yes.
That's PDF.
We have a question about it.
One question, I have 2 questions. I wanted to find out, you said it's online, is it live now?
No.
Okay,
We are-
projected date.
We are looking at early next year. Early next year. Now, what early next year means, we
First,
hope
for
that.
the first volume. It'll be 3 volumes.
Yeah. And so the first volume, making sure I'm correct, is the first volume, 1759, 1780. Yes, okay.
And
1781 is going to be a volume on its own. And then 1782, 1795.
all right, the second part of that question is the document searchable by keyword, location, or name?
I'm going to let Ms. Valley Sharp, who is making all that happen, answer that question.
All PDF files are searchable.
Yes, that was what, okay.
Oh, now it's going.
I have a question. The difference between religion and history is self-correcting, supposedly. Is there going to be an editor to this over the long term? Because you're going to have more stuff come to you. Can it be added sort of as a continual piece of history? So, you know what I mean? Did I say that right? Yes.
I would say yes. You know, what we're trying to do is make sure this thing goes through kind of in perpetuity.
Yeah.
You know, the 250th commission is around somewhere about, I believe 2033.
Yep.
And then you got the Revolution, the South Carolina Revolutionary War Trust is going to take on the helm of keeping those things going after that. And I think we'll have it covered.
I'll be able to answer some of the questions. I'm Valley Sharp and have taken on the task of publication, comma, whatever that means. The first version will be PDFs. There was a gentleman back here, and it'll look just like this. You can download it and print it if you want, but we will make them interactive PDFs so that you can click on the footnotes if you want, particularly the histories, because footnotes are down at the bottom and you can get to those easily enough. But there is a plan going forward. This is 8.5 by 11. The PDFs will be laid out in book form, as you'll see, because eventually somebody's going to want them printable, but we're not going to print them right away. But we're going to have them ready so that we can, at any moment, design the cover, and at least on a print-on-demand basis, print hardcover editions, paperback editions. And to the point that was made just a minute ago, the beauty of going with a PDF is that the PDF can be replaced. Now, what I mean by that is when new information comes in, we'll correct it, upload a new PDF, make the announcement as far as the website is concerned. So yes, the beauty of the PDF and the digital form as that goes is that it can be updated, and it's updated new PDF. It could be every day if you wanted to do it.
So will it be indexed? You said you're gonna have a possible book version, and at the end of the book, it'd be nice to have an index.
Yeah, the answer is yes, but we have we've got some decisions to be made at the appropriate time about whether you do one index at the end of the third volume versus an index in each of the volumes, but we haven't gotten quite there yet.
JD, you can do that.
Yeah.
You can do that.
Hey, I'll be glad to send them to you before so that you can handle it. Yeah, right. All right, and in long term, there will, at least theoretically, or at least in my imagination, be a Kindle version, which won't have an index because you can search on any word you want to. And you can tap in that situation, the footnotes will become endnotes, and you tap and do all the rest of that. Let me scroll backward a little bit. I just wanted to mention one thing about, keep going, okay, stop right there. You see the box that says October to November 2nd. Throughout, not so much from a random standpoint, But when there's a good period of time between one letter or quarterly report and the next, we've inserted a box that sort of encapsulates what was happening in the board in general at that same period of time. And if you want to go faster to the end of that PDF, just keep going. Rick made reference to, okay, stop. Yeah, you need to start in the beginning of that. The footnote will say, you know, where Lord William Campbell, for example, is mentioned in the text, see a short bio of Lord William Campbell on page 15. That'll be in the footnote so that you can get there or tap it. But this is the way that we've done, and you can scroll through a few more just to see. They're not all there yet, but, and this is where most of them will be, but this is the end of 1775. So anybody who's in the 1775 section and mentioned with a bio will appear here, and there are a few more that are here.
Yeah, where we heard about Richard Richardson.
Yeah, didn't we hear something about that today?
Yeah, has there been a website established as to where this will be found?
No, it'll be found on either the Trust List or the 250, yeah.
So January, so we
Yeah.
start looking for it?
Yeah. We'll make a big announcement in February.
Okay.
That coincides with Francis Marion's death,
Okay.
which we can celebrate.
In
since-
Pineville.
Yeah, that's true, in Pineville. Karen reminded me that we didn't know his birthday, so we're just going to claim sometime in February. This has been a really interesting process, and I think Valley and Craig and Ben Rubin and Dave Nealon a lot with keeping with Charles's original vision of what he wanted this to look like. And it's interesting to go back and forth between a digital and a book. Very different species. So that's why some of your questions are very good, because one may have the other, the other may not. Any other questions for Rick? Of course you can make a comment, Karen.
I'd like to speak.
Karen does not need the microphone.
No, I really don't. So when I first met Dave Nealon here at the symposium, he was just a hobbyist, and he had this kind of fetish that he wanted to know where Francis Marion was during all the periods of his campaigns. So he started collecting these letters. I have to give a great deal of credit to Carol and George Summers, because they held these symposiums and they brought together a lot of amateur historians who have done tremendous work. And without those folks, we wouldn't be where we are today. They have gone, like Dave Nealon, they've done all the research, all the work that the professional historians never had the time to do. And so I think that, I'm going to ask for a round of applause for this. Anytime someone tells you you can't do something, don't believe them.
And I was telling somebody that what's beautiful about this room is that everyone in here, this is their avocation. We just have a passion for it.
Yes, obviously this project has uncovered a lot of information that hadn't been available to the general public, certainly, you know, sitting in attics and places like that. And you mentioned at the very beginning of a couple of things that were surprising. Can you name one or two other things that surprised you of new information about Marion's impact, his practices, his activities, etc., that were quite different than what we all knew about before?
You like coffee?
Yeah.
He did like coffee when he could get it. You know, Marion's influence, and you kind of have to read between the lines a lot. One of the first letters that Green wrote to Marion was, hey, I need, you know, you will be of great value providing intelligence. Marion had been doing all that stuff since he took command at Witherspoon's Ferry, somewhere around the 17th of August, 1780. So in December, he gets a letter from Green saying, hey, you know, you can provide intelligence, and this is how I recommend you do it. And then proceeds to tell him how to do what he had been doing for the last several months. That's kind of a human nature thing, but I think it shows Green wanting to be kind of a hands-on type commander in that regard. Marion did so many things intuitively, and I'll talk about it more in the morning. But the things that he did to command people, no one left Charleston or Georgetown or Camden or Fort Watson that Marion didn't know him. We see, you know, we have all the different battles, Black Mingo, Terracotta Swamp, that sort of thing, and they're accounted for. One of the things that you read between the lines, a great number of scouting missions that were probably out there at any time that didn't get written about, where you got 3 and 4 guys engaging 3 and 4 other guys. Where you don't get the account of the scouts that he had out there that were accosting and being able to capture messengers and couriers and be able to ambush convoys going to Camden and that sort of thing. That didn't get written down in the history book, but it terrified the British because Marion was everywhere and he was nowhere. He was like smoke, which is the ultimate thing that a partisan leader wants to be. He could send his trusted subordinates out, and they did their mission and got results. And every one of them, whether it was being led by the Postel brothers or the Ories or anybody else, all of them had one name. And that was Marion. Marion was everywhere. How many campfires did guys sit around at night looking over their shoulder into the darkness and wondering if Marion and the men were there? So when I've done the papers and helped with this process, it gave me a sense of a commander who was able to extract the most out of some folks under our circumstances. He was a unique individual. And then the letters, what they do is as we talked before about the Rounds campaign, you can put together the picture much better. If you read, and again, many of the biographers and historians did not have the Marion papers. You know, they had 2 or 3, and 2 or 3 sometimes don't tell the story. Hey, we have the letter that Sumter wrote to Marion. Sumter wrote that letter and said, time is of the essence. I need you to distract Lord Rawdon. Also, do you have some ammunition? He wrote that letter the day he started the siege at Fort Granby. It only took 6 days for that letter to get to Marion. And people say Marion did not respond. Marion ignored the communication. Marion did not communicate until you see that Marion from the letters got that letter 6 days later and responded immediately. As a matter of fact, he said another message just came in, and this is my second response. He got the letter somewhere over around Indiantown, and he said, I will gather my men and I will be at the headwaters of Black River. He said, on the 29th of February, it was not leap year. He was at the headwaters of Black River on the 1st of March. And he wrote from there where he was, and he was exactly where he said he would be when he said he would be there. These same historians will tell you, Marion said that he couldn't get to Sumter because the enemy was a too great a strength. That never stopped him before. Just another way of Marion dragging his feet and not wanting to serve under Sumter. Until you read the letter to Lord Cornwallis by Francis Lord Rawdon, And Lord Rawlings says, I interposed myself between Marion and Sumter so that they could not unite. If your enemy tells you what was going on, and he was there in force as well. So these letters are going to be illuminating for a lot of people when you can read about what was going on and read the actual words of the people who were there. And read what was on their minds. And understand that, you know, there was a difference in these commanders. Marion operated in an area where you had loyalists to the northeast, you had British forces in Georgetown, you had British forces crossing into his territory coming from Charleston going to Camden, you had Fort Watson, you had Camden itself, and his men were inside the collar of all that. And every time they answered the call, they didn't know what they would find when they went home. Tom Elmore, I'm with you on the Patriot. 279 things historically wrong with that. You all remember the scene in the Patriot where the guy goes home and his wife and son have been killed? It happened numerous times. Marion led in a way that gave his guys hope. He led in a way that gave them the promise of success, and he took his men's lives very seriously. These letters are going to show you more of that. Thank you all very much.